Hi, this is Drew Tignanelli. This is our January 2026 update. Wow, time flies.
I know every year it just goes faster and faster, Drew.
Anyway, we got a couple great articles and a couple videos coming up.
We
What do you got
do.
going? Yeah.
So the article for this month, for the month of January, is going to be the beach house decision that reminded me why I became a financial advisor. And that was written by Roger Bair. And it's about a newly widowed client who asked Roger a question, nothing to do with portfolios or tax returns, but more just about whether or not she could actually rent the beach house, still rent the beach house for her family. And, the answer that he found actually surprised him as well. So watch out for that in the coming weeks to come online. And we also have a video coming out this month, Drew.
Yeah. 11 questions that a financial advisor gets. Jackson and Alec Sunners, Jackson Courtney are going to do that. These are very popular questions that we get all the time, and they're going to answer those. And most of our listeners are going to want to hear the answer to those 11 questions. So
Yeah, and
always keep it. Go ahead.
well, we might have been going to the same place, Drew, but I just wanted to remind everyone that, if you see one of these articles or you see the video and you think, wow, that's interesting, or I think other people would benefit from that, we certainly always appreciate when our clients forward these on to other people in their lives that they think might benefit from some of the content we're creating.
And also, we now have questions at moneyrichesandwealth.com that anybody can ask us a question. We got a friend that you think would be a good referral for us, and they want to just get a feel for who we are and how we operate. They can just send us a question, something, maybe somebody says something to you, a family member or a friend says something to you about personal finances, and you say, well, don't ask me here, ask these guys. They're the best. And questions at moneyrichesandwealth.com is the way you can do that. We get lots of questions on that. It's been getting a lot of good ones. Anyway,
Absolutely.
markets are done very well so far this year. I don't expect it to change in the day or two after we tape this, Mike. So
Yeah, if anybody watched me look over to my right side, it was because I was just updating Yahoo Finance so that as of the moment that we're recording this, markets are looking that they'll end the year very positively, at least in the equity side.
yeah. And it's not uncommon, you get the good year. And now you got to just beware that when you have good years like this, two, three in a row, you got to be ready for one of those downturns. It happens sooner or later, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, one of the things that kind of the yin and yang of predicting markets is, well, the truth is you can't. But the yin and the yang of it is if you have a year like we've had this past year with really great significant gains, and it's even compounded when you say like, hey, you look through a past few years, it's been a past few years, there's always going to be what we call the market pundits. This is a term used for the people that get invited on CNBC and you know, um, CNN and whatever other financial news reporting agency. There's always going to be people that just tell you about how bad it's going to be next year, how bad growth is going to be for the following years. And we really can't tell you whether they're right or wrong, but there's just always more of those people when you follow a down market. But it doesn't mean that you shouldn't pay attention to the fact that we've had this, large upward market. It can really always be a time you have any market move, whether it's significantly down or significantly up. It's always a great time to sit and reflect on your risk tolerance. How would you feel next year if you lost a certain percent, or if you missed a certain percent of upside? How would those things make you feel? And then the most important thing is, what does my cash flow look like for the next 5 to 7 years? In the next 5 to 7 years, how much of my portfolio do I need to rely on, to draw, to live on? And if there's something that's causing that to be more significant than it has in the past, it might be a good time to say, hey, part of my portfolio needs to be kind of in a reserve status so that it's ready for those cash draws that I might need in the near term.
Yeah. Also, you've had gold and silver going up like crazy lately, and it gets people excited. When they see something go up like that, it gets people excited. And you got to be careful and be cautious about that because, the way to invest is understand what am I getting for what am I paying? What am I paying and what am I getting? and what's the intrinsic value of what I'm getting. All right. Gold, to produce an ounce of gold takes about $2,000. To produce an ounce of silver, it takes about $25. Gold now is trading like $4,500 an ounce. Silver is trading like $72 an ounce. That makes no sense, logical sense, based on how much it costs to produce an ounce of gold or silver out of the ground. But there's two reasons why it's going up. Central banks have been buying in Russia and China and India and so forth. And people are getting excited because it's hitting new highs. People always follow the momentum until it stops. And when it stops, that's when people get hurt because they don't understand the intrinsic value of what they're buying. And central banks are some of the worst in when it comes to buying. When central banks are moving it up, it's great, it's wonderful. But when they finally stop and they realize they're making a mistake, keep buying this, it's ugly. It always has been in the past. It always will be in the future. So we just need to be very cautious. Don't get excited about things like that. So anyway, we've got the New Year's coming up. A lot of people make resolutions. What are we telling our clients?
Yeah, so, we're not going to be like we're going to be just like everybody else, jump on that New Year's resolution bandwagon. But, from the financial consulate standpoint, we want to help to illuminate the idea of taking in this new year as an opportunity to assess what your money values are. So, Drew has a saying. I believe we always give you credit for the saying, Drew. I think you've said before that you're not sure if you made it up or if you heard it somewhere, but
No, I was the one that created that
oh, you
line.
did. Okay, that was a different one. But
How you think about money will determine everything you'll do with and for money.
yep, what you believe or think about money will determine everything you'll do for or with money. So one of the things that's great, New Year's is always a great time of reflection, reflecting back on the prior year, but reflecting upon your family and where everybody is and what's going on, and trying to say, hey, what are our values when it relates to money? Sometimes it's about specific things. It's about togetherness time or travel together. Sometimes it's about security. Sometimes it's about education. We're not here to tell you what your values around money should be, but that it's important to recognize what they are, define them, and then try to look to see how can you use these values to direct what you do in 2026. How can you also model these values for your family? If you're saying that, hey, these are the things that I or we as a couple or we as a family think are important, how are we modeling this behavior for our children, our grandchildren, or the other people in our lives? And then one of the things is how can we use these values to enhance our families, enhance our relationships? And one of the things we always try to point out to people is that you have to be very careful with how you use your values to help family, because sometimes what you can do with money can help family, but sometimes what you can do with money can hurt family that needs help. So it's always just a great time of reflection.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the last thing that we wanted to follow on is that in the new year, there's things that you haven't done that we've stated to all of our clients. These are things that you need to do. Like a credit freeze. Freezing your credit is probably one of the most protective things you can do against identity theft. Not hiring LifeLock. LifeLock's a nice thing. If you decide to do it, that's great. But freezing your credit is much more powerful than LifeLock will ever be. LifeLock will only tell you that somebody's stolen your identity. A credit freeze will pretty much put a barrier that no one can steal your identity, Mike.
Or at least
So
steal your credit. But another
steal
one,
your credit.
and we bring these things up because a lot of times New Year's resolutions are the things you meant to do last year that you didn't. But another one is keeping money in low or no interest bearing accounts, keeping too much money in the checking account that's not bringing any interest, or using a brick and mortar bank savings account. We've sent out and we've talked about Flourish in the past. There's other options in addition to Flourish, but don't miss out on kind of the easy, low hanging fruit of not keeping money in no interest bearing accounts.
Yeah, and the other one is people have money sitting in just accounts out there And, it's the companies like Computer Share or EQ Share Owner Services. Maybe you had some stock that you had from a long time ago and it's just sitting there. That's one of the worst things you could do. Or maybe you had an old Fidelity account or Merrill Lynch account or Morgan Stanley, whatever,
An
and
old
it's just
employer
sitting,
401k.
an old employer 401k. There's all kinds of accounts that might just be sitting there. You may even know they're there, but you're not doing anything with them. You need to consolidate. You need to keep your finances as simple to manage as possible and be able to see everything as quickly and easily as possible. You don't want it just hanging out everywhere and anywhere.
Yep. And then there's a number of times people that have owned homes that we've said, hey, you should consider having a HELOC to handle, an unexpected need for money in the short term. We're not going to go into all that stuff for these specifics, but just as a reminder, hey, go back and look at Mike and Drew and Alec and Leo and Graham and all the other advisors here. Look at the advice they've given us in the past on things like that. And then lastly, one of the things we wanted to pull up is a number of our clients, and maybe even people who aren't clients, have, stock investments or other investments that they picked for themselves that at some point in the past they were very involved with. They were looking up the name of they were looking up the company, they were staying engaged with what that company is doing, and maybe over the years that isn't quite the case anymore. Maybe that company appreciated so much that you don't want to do anything with it, but maybe it hasn't. And maybe there's just stocks out there that you were really interested, Under Armour for the Baltimore area. People were really into that because it was a local Baltimore company. But, maybe that's something that's not highly appreciated, that's just still sitting out there. So it's a great time to go through any of those investments you chose for yourself and say, hey, am I really paying attention to this? Should I hold on to this? Or should I even maybe consider moving it to my managed portfolio where the financial consulate team will make sure that it's always getting reevaluated?
Yeah, and I think we're out of time.
I think so, sir.
Well, I pray that everyone has a great 2026. This is Drew Tignanelli saying God bless.